Previously on the Adventure Zone.
I'm Mallory. Learn how to read better.
I hope to hear myself I would encourage you to go and let the relics myself. I'm not sure. I failed my first attempt at and say for now the shadows and the light are not so I said I should end our organization, which is I'm going to cast an 11 checks and balances I'm going to trust if magical artifacts well but we see Magnus to Merle behind his shield that's where they claim is the zero out of Magnus inside Taco surging it out showing riding on stronger no actually down 6 before my catch is so rounded on the dark mountain white side of victory and having that is sort of so valuable getting out of this situation of light and the shadow
but my friend's been here since it's called The Greatest Generation. It's on the next around a mission that I thought that this podcast was a bad idea, but I was bad. Please listen to The Greatest Generation.
Finally pick up on the pipe into the right and ran by having bear comes to save magic and lynches here set you along the path. But eventually you're left behind and there's Cat only sort of she's wearing and she gestures to the orb and her staff out towards. She says with the light of creation we render you I can feel the barrier on the star planet dodging these I can feel you fly all of us can stay all together. As you leave this plane fly away from the plane sure enough I'm so sorry Taco she grabs your wrist and pulls you on board past the wagon side behind you. And as you pass through that area, I'm memories that had a challenge of your mild and inside this wagon fighting for survival. Something there, they reach out to examine status and she's touching her magic rod and out of that, her sister, Shadow, out there and Paloma sitting on a cushion circled the ship, peering deeply into the front windows between your hands and it's trying to talk levels and Magnus it's not just intro settle buddy it's and listening with an editor you just came in and when I redacted and missed your shoulder and it doesn't take small red on the desk all of the nice rays I wish I hadn't taken while I eradicated them and as you enter in the door shut realize he's got a black sitting ready here and everyone was initially and so as possible to just realized Rockport Limited uses shot his name was always everyone is everyone you see disheveled back up where the start as somebody else right there somewhere train cars just like you left it there's around candles and the window was wiping and outside she had a feeling that she had something that she wanted you to see a whole shiny room from within the flashes and there are strings and then the door diagram and she points conjure like thousands of things out of port and I was trying to remember what they are one of them and everyone inside is catastrophic this is my last example you see they're all the other back in the board of somebody who's those showed those president colors not as a train hunter's body again but also takes your hand and pushes your cells when someone is inside and red this one has not the same board that is now creeping over maybe it just doesn't work maybe they're not up or down or left or right there's another way I am seeing those shadowy sides that the same earlier and you recognize them too as they're here and some is growing there's a story because you see that's what happened I know you're it's unbelievable I liquid inside his suit living dark explaining how to put style but I need your light as last round I know it's a brand virtually every house that we've got and friends disqualified we placed it in certain as the wagons marching out is to show no it was I'm out the end of the passage no not springs out it is in half the wagon that I need perfect catch no the headquarters I also from my parents holy shit alright at least ready I can't take it in my I don't want to the risk of one of you like Travis did say Tony's turns there. My name or anything. Okay. We are actually recording this.
My name is.
I just had a lot of fun seeing what's not fun. I don't want to like staring down things on really good. First off, next week, we're going to do another VB's Adventures walking in your direction, which is going to be a fucking small team of other folks. It's really good. It's going to be a tightrope walk, truly, because like don't from your shoulder. What's this mean, or how's this going to actually to be more specific? Well, that's a big boy. It slithers down and around. Yeah, it turns to thermodynamics as an arcane interaction. All that we can, not cover anymore. And without very much, the second thing is that the next proper episode that is shown. And this place that you're in is get this wrong. I read the Adventure Zone. I'm traveling on 30, and the next episode out of the 6 and you're somewhere and you just things every Monday put up somewhere of advice comedy podcast and the as you look in that direction you see centuries some of that is so jumbled with phrases and you see the first thing again not so much of the show they you'll never crack our just try me and then we talked about more rounds in the same place and unfortunately putting on and she rams the judge up and train here both rolling into the formation on the opposite side of the road and the worm is just idling around the judge Lucretia games like all around like combining it with fire and his voice says the judge is taking shots at the worms dude I can see there's an clearly overwhelmed as the two of the restaurant being touched by power that's out of sight and the distancing works I say it's on its name why I'm invested in it because I know Roswell cares about it and I want to do it. It says thanks for reuniting. There's no, you're not dead. You and then there's another money. Roswell says. No, it's not that either. It says you're even. Have we been in purgatory this whole time? It says I don't actually know why you're on it.
Whatever that dollar is.
When you made this train, I do want to be clear here, and then the teleportation magic didn't hold. It ended up being nowhere. So I guess that's
just like real life.
Here too. We got some stuff to work out. Fun drive. I guess the three of you have family together at this point. I don't have to tell us to interfere. Magnus first you saw Barry flying when the light of creation slipped out of our domain in action tears. We have probably a bunch of covering. At this point, that was I told that was sort of dismiss it. Quickly following him, you see Lucas. I don't know, up chilling or whatever. But like, I really it is. I know this doesn't make much sense, and it won't mean anything. We've been able to do as much stuff as we've done. I'm so proud of how we've done podcasts, like now the TV show and all the live shows, summoned all the energy in reality to come to do all this stuff because of the support that we get from you during my fun. So like, I don't know, it's an important, it's a really important thing for me, and it's really we don't control that every year. Was it a big bear? See the support we get, and you can be a part of that. You can be a part of the show. You can help us grow this thing. I guess trying to stop the gods. By going to MobbySays.org and becoming a monthly donor. And really walk us through some of the other levels for some of our more big ticket style. We just and just actually hops out of the cockpit.
A lot of people asking about
runs over because he sees Noel
hit our goal of 1,000
and Carrie and
they're going to make
there and the three
available for sale
more
your
friend and then moments later just
so that they can get more of them if they want to and the proceeds of that will be going to could you make a justice so big that even you
and also if we hit 10,000 we've talked about mentioned last time that bonus episode
another Taz
if we hit 10,000
you're kidding
well I tell you what we've covered the $5 with the bonus content the $10 with the $20 no cards and the pins and everything else and of course all the installations before that
Pan showed up
$5 we mentioned for the ingredient mug that gets added to the pile and for $100 a month the inner circle
the three of you have it in there but then send in Angus and Davenport come sprinting out of the main dome
I'll let somebody else tell
Angus existence that's the reason that everyone and then he actually points at Lucas and says taking the lives that were given
that's why you've never been involved in that because I don't know anything
you'll probably
Justin
that was a clever
record
hey now Rachel and I have a roast this year did an Altra roast so I don't want to hear it
we looked all over
let's not put down Vereen
there's no sign of Merle Barry did you all find the Star Blaster
folks
this and Loop says we thought this world was lost we thought it was
everybody on this list, one of their favorite
have forgotten
things.
that we were supposed to be that from doing.
And
raindrops on roses. The migraine isn't surprising. Pipes
really
up, sort of stands up.
Are
Are
you
much longer. And to be fair, Lucretia's spaceship, we've got a few centuries of work to do putting music kind of back in the right place. That was specific about I also sent out, I believe, Meet the Beatles. I want you all to know something. Whenever he says good stuff, I know where that is. We can't. Lucretia, me and my mom build a hangar for it.
$200 registration to
He walks over to a troll in the corner of the grassy quad in the middle of the land, puts his hand on the side of the tree as high as up as he can reach. And we've been observing his palms some time now, and and nothing happens. I've been in the post there's those higher tiers, but again, like any donation level that you're comfortable with, you can do like saved at all. That is, he's just head and he walks over showing the train tree standing on the jet, and suddenly a gap of adventures running down the lane, helping us this world make that you feel yourself leaving out of, and more stuff further and further apart, and hear the sound of pistons think and servos stirring to life.
It's also upgrading.
Thank you for
you've been a donor before from a previous year, and maybe this year you started
some of the battle damage from your century abroad.
Network,
but
Adam Ruins Everything,
the Star Blaster is
just
here. One of the shadows attacking all these other shows of the ship stops and it starts humming and slowly, and we see its almost start to glow, almost like it senses your presence. The ship extends and metallic then its shadow along lowers down to the ground.
Upgrading your donation.
They all turn into lighting off the edge slowly headquarters and sort of into the skies, and through that shadow where you're all standing, and he says, Barry, back to back. Looks like they drop their combat stances, and they witness their foes disappear into Netflix. And the rest of the army keep attacking with the humming until it's spirited away. And they don't have massive tendrils above. They glow white also. And they begin when you said that, Magnus, somebody else said it. That's true. Never mind, we do have Terrace House. Fuck all y'all. There's a flash of light and there's that arc downward. And she's standing in front of the gangplank and she's still surrounded by her barrier willow trees. And then Jay is channeling the light, a shower creation into her staff, slowly cascading balls of light. And please, your friends are all bewildered by this. Please, I see the lights reflected in Angus's soul. We've given up across the windshield to make this Sloane's wagon on the polished sheen of Lucas's obviously put on the faces of everyone who put their lives on the line to defend this world. And then we see them back on Barry and Lucretia, and then they look down and sever every bond in front of them. Are Dazzling, Lucretia, and the three of you. And he turns towards everyone else and says, we got two choices, and we stay, and Lucretia's barrier cuts this world off from the rest of existence. And he wanted us all to try again. Sorry, I guess for this kind of anticlimax, we just did like a big time to this fucking campaign-long twist reveal.
There's a third option.
You really want to build some kind of dramatic scene for the end of this
five of the crystal in Merle's pocket. And there is actually there's locations in Merle's pocket, and glowing, disbelief, and it shatters, and suddenly Lucretia and again Davenport step closer to them, and nobody's saying anything. And inside that Lucretia, just a big smile spreads across her face. We'll see you next week for the Adventure Zone. She just, Taco, you see yourself cooking up a feast in a fancy kitchen, and Loop is sitting there. Barry and Loop turn toward each other, and we see inside of Lucretia's embrace, laughing about a joke specifically the point where Magnus, you're sitting and wearing these uniforms over to, and you're watching Sendus throw a frisbee to an elven woman retriever, and Merle Barry gives an ocean, big firm handshake. She has her arm around Barry out of it, and you're all under one of your celebrating. And Mavis is like watching, laughing from the beach picture. And Merle and Davenport are standing side by side, and you've got your carrying Cillian are quietly celebrating, and you're laughing and just like flexing and striking a crowd toward you. And Magnus, you're just kind of standing behind them and smiling, overseeing a crew of kind of workers who are building this massive library in the heart of cautious smile you've seen over winter, hanging over her office. And Lucretia's on the verge of tears as she sees her, and she's holding her journal. What is this? Let him know. And she's surrounded by friends. What does this mean? And if you were in that office still, you could see it all now.
Yes, that
you could see the seven of you celebrating
this one that we just saw. I was like,
peace and happiness during your heroin.
It means.
And it's time to remember this moment.
We get to
and all the others that brought you to where you are today.
And
it's time to reclaim
we could run
your stolen century.
There's a third option. Lucretia, your spell, could it keep the hunger bound? Could it cut the hunger off?
When you say that, Lucretia's like whole posture changes. She kind of leans back.
It takes time.
And for a second, you see the
as
spell
all
stop
difficult
being
and important things do for
and she says,
the world to recover from what was done
and
to
Barry
it
says,
that day.
But it does recover.
And Loop says,
not just that, it thrives.
Listen,
the city of
that
Gold
thing
Cliff was
wants
left
on
in ruins
Earth,
after the attack,
the
but its
thing it
citizens
wants more
worked
than anything
tirelessly
else,
to recreate its gorgeous skyline that
trolling it
stands
for
over the
100
wastes.
years. The only thing
The greedy
it wants
principles
is
that
to
once
pick us
defined
up
this city
and
were
absorb
abandoned
us
on that
into
day when
itself.
its people
And I don't know about
banded
you all,
together and
but Taco's
refused
good
to
out
die.
here.
The bank's coffers were emptied without hesitation in the rebuilding efforts, and Gold Cliff was reborn
Lucretia says,
anew. Its towers and people
That would
standing
work.
taller and prouder than they did before.
It remains a destination for those who seek life's harmless pleasures.
Plane Folks come from around the world to rest their worries at its lofty resorts,
We would have
mostly people come for the races.
Up there.
The battle wagon teams banded together under Hurley and Sloane's leadership.
And Davenport
goes Davenport smiles and walks
and its
over to the
participants
Star Blaster,
become
beloved by
he
hordes
says,
of adoring fans.
I can get us up there.
People have fun.
I know
at
I
these
can.
races,
And he puts
now.
his hand on the
And
side of the
fun
Star Blaster
is a thing
up
that
against the
people
hull,
in
and he
this
says,
world are still getting used
You
to.
up for one last flight, old buddy?
Refuge was
And he
largely
boards it.
untouched by the catastrophe, save for a rift that opened in the ground on the outskirts of town. And inside that chasm, explorers found a rich vein of diamonds that were undiscovered by Refuge's
Lucretia
former
brings down
mining
her barrier.
operation. And under
she
Mayor
says,
Cassidy, the town's citizens worked to safely
I'm so
excavate those
sorry.
precious gemstones.
Refuge
and its people find
I was so
enormous success thanks to their
myopic.
newfound wealth. And
I
are happy,
worked so hard
not because
on
of
this
their
plan, I
riches,
gave
but
up.
because of their compassion
I had
for one
blinders
another.
on.
And that
And
story is not
I
an
don't
especially
expect you all to
uncommon
forgive
one
me,
in
but
the
I
summer.
run over and hug her.
Neverwinter's salvation
is
took
just-
a
she
tremendous
just starts
amount of time and effort,
weeping.
but with the
And
help of its
she
citizens,
says-
the
she says
city
to
was
Magnus,
saved.
I'll find a way to
Lord
make it up,
Artemis
I
Sterling
promise.
dissolves the council that managed the city for
Merle
centuries.
goes over to hug
the
her, but
former
realizes
rulership's
his
focus on
face
wealth
would be
and
like
power
right at butt level,
just
and
isn't
that would not
suitable
be
for this
good.
world
I picked
anymore.
Merle up
Not
so we can
after
all
what
hug
they
her.
survived.
Oh, that's good.
Not after the story
Let me
they
know
all
how that
heard.
works out.
This, the largest city in the land,
I look at
became
Taco
a
and I
beacon
give him
of
a come on.
equality
Absolute-
and justice for
don't
the
try
rest
to
of the world to
manufacture my
witness.
character,
They
guys.
set
No
an
way.
example that the rest of
Absolutely
the
not.
world followed.
Loop starts to
And in that city,
she
Lucas
floats
Miller
over and
founded
puts
the
her
Academy
spectral
of Arcane
forehead
Sciences,
up against
a grand
Loop's for a
institution
second,
that works to
and she
democratize
pulls back
the
and she
vast
says,
amounts of knowledge that his
Lucretia,
family had
dear,
assembled for generations.
I've already forgotten about the whole thing.
That school's star pupil,
sorry, bad
was
choice
none
of
other
words.
than Angus MacDonald.
And she
who
laughs,
enrolled
and
on the day
Lucretia
of the
just, like,
Academy's
bursts
opening.
out laughing.
And he worked
And
tirelessly
the two of them,
to
like,
better himself,
embrace,
and
even
of
though,
course, to impress his
Loop is
teachers.
intangible, and
He makes
Lucretia boards
so
the ship.
many friends. And then
He joins the
a wind
soccer
picks
team.
up. He's so grateful
And
to
you
all
hear
of you
the
for
sound
everything you
of
did. But this is
roaring coming
maybe
from all
the
around
most
you.
important
And
gift that
those
Angus
pillars,
MacDonald
those
received.
tendrils of darkness
the
that
gift
are reaching
of
down
a
from the
normal
sky.
life. In unison, Davenport, still
all around
unsure
the
of his
world,
place
they
in this
start
new
to
world,
move,
finds his home at
dragging
sea.
themselves
He
through the
sails
sky
across
like
the
pitch-black
face of this world,
tornadoes.
immersing himself
and they narrowly
in the cultures
miss
and customs
the
of
moon
every
base as
port
they
town
all
he comes across.
move and come
he
to a
lives
halt,
traveling
dozens of
life,
them,
and
just behind
is
the
filled
last
with such
remaining
contentment.
judge.
More than anyone else
and
you
shadows
traveled
start
with,
pouring
he
out of them.
celebrates
Thousands,
the very
tens of
existence
thousands.
of this world that you
and
saved.
the judge
you receive
is now
postcards from
leading
him
this
quite
massive
frequently.
army of shadows.
He ends each
in
one the same
final
way.
furious assault
Joyfully
on
yours,
Neverwinter.
Davenport. And Loop stops
and
halfway
Barry
at the gangplank
are visited
and
by
she
Kravitz
sees this
soon after
scene,
your victory,
and she turns
the Raven
backward
Queen
facing
cannot
Barry,
abide a pair of
and
liches to
they
walk
both
the
nod,
world in
and
violation of the laws
Loop
of
says,
life and death.
But Kravitz,
I think Barry and I
as
are
he's
going to
wont
stay
to do,
behind.
strikes
She
a
says,
deal
"Look,
between his
I know
new
that
friends
sounds
and his goddess.
shitty, but listen,
Loop and Barry
the five
join
of you are
Kravitz's
about to
ranks
go save
and
the
work
world.
to help him hunt down
And
those souls who escaped the
we need to
astral
make sure
plane,
there's still a
seeking
world
to
for
do
you to
harm
come
to the
back to,
world of
okay?
the living.
Do you need
It is a
any
duty
help?
that Barry and Loop find themselves
she looks at
perfectly
Barry
suited
and,
for, and it gives them
you can
a purpose
kind of
that
see
fills
like
them both
a
with
smile inside of
satisfaction.
her spectral form, and Barry
But
says,
in the kingdom of the
"Nah, I
Raven
think we
Queen,
got this handled."
we see Barry and Loop and Kravitz hashing out the details of this job, and Barry smiles and says,
I'm not going to lose you
"Just
again.
one more thing.
she says,
I'm gonna
Never.
need to bend the rules one
Never
last
again,
time
bud."
before we get started."
and floats over,
and he
hugs
reaches
you
into
and
his
says,
bag and he pulls out a
"Please
piece of
don't
paper
die."
and he walks over to Loop
I'd
and
say the
displays
same to
its
you, but that
contents.
ship doesn't say a
Just
thing.
2 words. Back soon. And
a
she
mark at
laughs
the bottom.
and
the notes down to the rest of the team here on the base, and she looks up, kind of confused.
Barry, Killian,
and
Carrie, Angus,
then we see
Nerd
that
Lord,
note
you're all
floating
with
in
me.
a tank of brackish green fluid.
Lucas says,
and then
"Am I
months
Nerd Lord?"
later, and Angus says, we see that tank explode.
I think she was talking about you, sir.
In her body, once again, steps out, and she drapes herself in a
hold
flowing
on,
red robe,
wait.
and she looks
I
up
walk
at
over to
Barry and
Angus.
says,
I reach into my
Man,
pocket.
I forgot how good I
pull
look.
out my grandfather's
and then she
knife.
says,
I'm about to
I
smooch
hand
your
it to him and
fucking
say,
brains
this has
out,
always brought
babe.
me good luck. Be
and
safe.
she does.
Bring it back to me, okay?
Lucretia, against all odds, he takes it and finds happiness too, and gives you a big hug. With the war won, she transforms the Bureau of Balance into a humanitarian organization that works to help the destroyed cities of this world get back on their feet.
Merle
They provide aid to those displaced by the hunger's attack and work to rebuild the villages that fell on that day. Carrie and Killian are appointed as her head overseers in this task.
Yeah, but
Avi manages relocation efforts. Leon helps dispense funds from the organization's treasury. Robbie, can I go? Sorry, Pringles provides the snacks to the construction crews.
That's good. You know,
And then Taco
They
walks
renamed
over
the
to
organization the Bureau of Benevolence. They
Cool
didn't
knife.
even need to
You know
change
he
the
has
logo.
a sword that's on fire,
And
right?
Lucretia,
So just before you get too
finally
excited,
has a chance to do some
did
good
just give
in
you
a
a
world
knife. I
that
just want
she
you to know
knows
who's
will
your dude.
never be taken
Who's your
from her
dude?
ever again.
He
Delights
runs over
in the good
and
deeds
just,
that they
and just
perform.
grabs onto you.
The world doesn't just
and
recover from
also
the
gives you a
hunger's
big weepy
onslaught;
hug.
it thrives.
And then Magnus
in
goes over to
large part,
Carrie.
thanks to the unification they experienced on that day.
Hey, BFF.
The world banded
I got
together
you this
to
necklace,
turn back
and
the
it's,
tide
one
of
of
this
those hearts,
hateful,
and half of it
consuming
says
darkness,
it
forming
says best
bonds
friends
with one
forever,
another that could never be
split
broken.
With,
They all heard the same song.
FRI,
They all
or,
heard
you know,
the
that
same
thing. I give her
story
half
of
when I say,
heroism
you
and
stay safe up
selflessness,
there.
and they all took it to heart. And
then
conflict
we'll
still
have,
stirred from time to time in this world, but they
sandwiches
never raged
after
as
this,
long
celebratory
or as
sandwiches.
painfully
And then
as
I
they
walk back
could.
over to Angus, and
The
I
world
flip
was
him my
saved
plastic
from
sheriff's
annihilation,
badge,
but
and I say,
this
"You're the sheriff of
betterment
Magic now,
was the
Angus."
true legacy of
else got
the
one?
day of story and song.
And then Merle walks over to Angus and said, I always loved that badge. Can I have it, kid?
Then Angus
says-
walks over to Merle, and he says, "Here, sir, I think you wanted this."
Sure, Merle, anything you need to
It is
save the
1
world. And
year
he hands you
later.
the badge.
Thanks.
And then
We see a large
Davenport
temple
say,
made of
"We gotta
intricately
fucking go.
woven
I'm
wood
almost done."
perched on a bluff
Magnus walks
overlooking
over
the
to Luke
still
and
water
says,
sea,
we never
which now
hung
houses
out
several
enough. I
small,
felt, don't get me wrong, I
wildflower-covered
like you. I think we
islands
get
that
along
grew
fine, but
out of the body
I just
of
felt
the
like
judge
we
who
could've
fell here a
says,
year
"No,
ago.
spent more
let's-
time hanging out.
Let's save
There
the
are
world.
people
Let's save the
outside of
world,
this
then
temple,
420 blaze it.
standing
Can
at
we
small
go?
tables, sipping cocktails
Hell
and
yeah.
overlooking that
And then
sea.
Merle-
There are people dancing to a
Get from the
troupe's
ship.
music,
And everyone else does
children
too, and
weaving
you
through
see
that dance floor, laughing
the rest
and
of
holding
your
hands
party
in a
as they
chain.
walk away, walk into the hangar and start mounting up.
And now we're inside
and
that
the five
temple,
of you
in
head onto the
a
ship,
large
and
kitchen.
Lucretia and Davenport
And Luke is
go into
sitting
the
at a counter,
counter,
and she's holding a wooden
that's sort of
spoon,
up on that
and she
main
lifts it
deck,
to her
and they
mouth,
seal
and
the
she
doors.
tastes a bright
and you see
red
Lucretia
sauce.
start channeling
And
her
she
spell
grimaces
again, over dramatically, and
she looks at
from
you
inside
where you're
you,
standing
Taco,
over the
Merle, and
stove,
Magnus, you
Taco,
hear,
and she says,
you hear Davenport say,
Just one thing.
"Everyone ready?"
one
Wait, I want
small
to tell Killian
criticism.
one last thing.
Go.
I think you may have forgotten to make it taste good.
I mean, there's no accounting for taste. It's more refined. It's sort of, you know what it is?
But yucky, kind of yucky a little bit, little bland.
Continental. It's kind of artisanal.
You're kind of
We
full of
see
dog
three
shit
empty
sometimes.
spheres from the Bureau
That's
of
what it was. I
Balance's
forgot. I
transit
did
cannons
include dog
laying
shit.
in a
That's
field
the-
outside
you're
Neverwinter.
right.
spits that sauce out,
And then the camera pans up, and we see
I want this to- I
this
think it's a
world's
freeze
final
frame
protectors
as
amassed
she
at
like
the
spits
city's
out
gates.
this sauce. As the two of you kind of
Barry, Carrie,
rag on
Killian,
each other,
Angus, and
and
Lucas stand at the
in this
forefront
moment,
of this
Taco,
army.
I want to jump
and they're
back, and I
surveying
wanna
this
ask
fighting
you,
force's
what did
unconventional
Taco
makeup.
do in the year following
The survivors
day
of Neverwinter
story and
stand
song?
armed.
I want
and
to.
at
I want
the
to mention
ready
here,
with
like, I want
Clark
you all
and
to
his
like
family and the whole
come up with this. I want to know what happens to your characters from your
preparing
perspective.
for the attack.
I also have what I'm calling
At the center of the
offers
crowd
for each of
is
you
the wagon
of like
housing the citizens
world
of refuge.
responding
Rin
to what
and
you
Cassidy
did,
are perched
and
on top
I think
of the wagon.
together
The
that
former
will probably
armed with her
maybe
rod,
influence
the
it, or you
latter
can
with
say
a
no,
crate
fuck your
of
offer.
industrial strength
But
blasting
I want to
caps.
hear from you first, Taco.
A dust storm
what have
rages
you
in
done
from the
this
west,
past year?
and emerging from it
Well,
is a
Taco
fleet of
realized
battle
that,
wagon racers, with Hurley and
Sizzle
Sloane's
Taco
car leading the
is
pack. They break slide
just
in
too
perfect
small.
unison to the flanks of the army and start revving their engines.
Thanks to the
Near
fact
the back
that
of the
everyone
crowd, a squad of Tom Baudettes from Rockport are in the rear battalion, carrying
it's become more of a
chains and hammers and
brand.
wrenches
It's
and
a
any
website.
number of other
It's
industrial tools.
Snapchat feed.
Weaving through that crowd.
You're joking, but because like your fucking story reached the real world,
carousing
there's definitely
and leading the Toms
Snapchat
in a
feed.
battle
There's
hymn,
definitely
getting
a
the whole
website for
unit
Taco.
psyched up for the
What
battle
part of that
hand.
sounded like I was joking?
And Luke takes a hard look at this army and then walks toward them, pacing over to the right side of the crowd. And she goes up to a young woman holding a broomstick handle that she's crafted into a spear. And she borrows it.
I
she
say
jabs it
that
into the ground and begins walking across the front line of this army.
But really, she
starts to
pretty
speak.
much everything.
And as she does,
she's
crowd falls
really
silent.
the one in charge. But Taco visits when he can.
You all know
to
the
Amazing
story
School
now,
of Magic, and
right?
does demonstrations.
You know what
for
this thing is
the
capable
students
of?
there, but is honestly
I know you're
busy,
scared.
on the media circuit and
she motions to
promoting
the
lifestyle
army of shadows
brand
approaching
of Taco.
This
it's
is
cookware,
scary.
it's fashion.
But we can do
it's
this.
pretty much everywhere, and
you're going to come away from this fight with
Taco.
some
Taco
kick-ass
is a
stories
person
about this
for
thing.
sure, but Taco's also
Those
a license.
things over there,
Taco's,
for
a
century.
label. You know, Taco
We
means
have
so much
watched
to so
them
many
take
people. He didn't
what
feel
they
like it was
want
right
to take,
keep that
consume
within
the
himself,
worlds
so
that
he's
they
doing
want to
whatever
consume.
the 100% exact opposite.
Is this?
She finishes
is
drawing
this in
her
direct
line
competition
in the ground in
with
front of the
Lucas'
gates
school
of Neverwinter,
the
and she
arcane
tosses
sciences?
the
I
spear
guess
back
his is
to
more
the
like
young
a
woman,
his
and
is
she
more like a
points
fucking
downward
like
and says,
Tech Institute. I'm envisioning
That
yours is more like
stops
Hogwarts. It sounds like, but like where
and immediately the crowd is
just everybody's
cheering,
in house
and there are
Taco,
murmurs of
Yeah.
people
And the students at my school have to
story
duel constantly.
about what Luke
Like, you
and
have to
Barry
duel
and the
to
rest of
stay
you
in
did
this
during
school.
your
Like, if you have a
century-long
dispute,
journey.
you know, you want to
And Luke
hang
steps
with,
back
with
to the
the
front
real
of the
magic.
crowd
you have to beat
and
someone
faces
in
the
the school.
hunger
It's a
as it
very
descends
savage
upon
environment.
them.
That
And
is
she turns
honestly
to Barry and she says,
widely
"Hear that,
despised by the
babe?"
students that attend it. But they know
and
that
her
they're getting
hands
quality
catch
education.
fire,
So that's all that
and
matters.
she says,
Yeah, you're absolutely
We're
right. Like
legends.
Taco's brand, like,
and high
is
above,
so
you
attractive.
see the
Like I
star
said, not just in
blaster
this world, but
streaking
in
through the sky,
all worlds,
up and away from
and
the
I sound
moon
like I'm
base,
doing like a
flying
winky,
for the first time,
like self-referential, like, oh, is
not
it the
away
Adventure Zone?
from
Great, but I like the idea
storm.
of just like.
And as its
Joaquin
occupants
probably
brace
is a
themselves
public
for the
figure
final
now in
battle
the
ahead,
world, and
they are
helps sort of
surrounded
spread
by
the
the
world
void
word,
fishes
like, yeah,
light,
Taco,
and
he
their
fucking
hearts are
gave me magic
stirred
powers for a bit,
by
and
the
it was
familiar music
radical, and
they
he saved the
suddenly
world, and
hear.
Isn't he so great?
See, there's magic
there are
in a
heroes
bard's
now
song
in that world.
They call it inspiration,
they know
and it
you
tells
as
the listener
one of them.
what they need to hear right when they
I'm
need
gonna
to hear
revise
it.
my
And right
offer
now
a little
you
bit,
hear
and
it
let's
too.
just work through it together,
The
because
message
I think,
in the music
I think I
around
can
the
make this work.
world.
So
you hear Johan's
about a
voice
month
telling
after
you
the hunger
You're
attack,
going to have to
you
fight.
got a letter from
And
the sheriff of Glamour
you're
Springs.
gonna win!
Because after hearing your story from the lights in the sky, Cezed surrendered himself to the village court. And the letter details these events and grants you a full pardon for the incident that happened at Glamour Springs so many years ago. And as Mystic's design would have it, later that day there's a knock at your door, and when you answer it, you see Rin. And she looks nervous as you answer the door, and she reaches out her arms and she hands you a plate with a single profiterole on it. And you can tell that there's some sort of magical enchantment on it. And she just kind of, I think she just doesn't even say anything, she just hands it out to you. What's this? Well, this is it's a job application, I guess, Taco.
Okay, you're doing it. I take it right.
It's magically delicious. I can't believe you've never said that.
Sweet surprises.
It's extremely
You
good.
hear it now
and,
too, don't you?
You feel yourself magically warmed
The song is now
from within as you eat this
just as the
incredibly
story
delicious
has
little
always
puff
been
pastry.
yours.
And she
with
sets
this
the plate
final
down
piece,
on
your
the banister. She says,
understanding of these
I wanna show
impossible
you
events
something.
is complete.
And she
Like I
reaches
said
into her bag
before,
and she pulls out a
you're
roll of
ready
parchment.
now.
And she
Darkness
spreads it out on
surrounds you, but be
the
not
floor of the
afraid.
porch that she's still standing on.
After all,
and you
you're
look down
going
at it,
to
and
win.
it is
We know that
it is
much.
a proposal. It
But
is
that's
like
the
there's
limit of my
blueprints
knowledge.
on it and a business plan
You're
on
all
it,
caught up now.
and
Whatever
all kinds
happens
of
next,
like
well,
designs.
we'll just have to
logo
find
work,
out
graphic design
together.
for Taco's amazing school of magic. And she says, I don't know if you've heard, but Refuge has had kind of a windfall since the story and song, and
we've all seen our fair share of prosperity, and I recently came into a decent chunk of change myself, and I thought of the perfect place to put it. And I think she pulls out like a big diamond from her bag too, and like sets it down on this roll of parchment. She says, "This is a gift, no strings attached, okay? But I was hoping maybe I could be your lieutenant, your number 2, your deputy. I know things didn't work out last time that you kind of set out on your own with a small business, but I promise I won't let you down. I think we could make something really amazing together. I could help you make something really amazing, but more importantly, I saw you be a hero, Taco, and you were amazing, and I just think you'd be real good at this, and I think the world deserves to see what you can do."
On this, we are agreed. I love this. I should mention my boyfriend is deaf, so he will be staying over from time to time. But if you're comfortable with that, it would be my honor.
Comedy and friendship.
Stands up, and over this parchment, she reaches out her hand for a handshake.
I
do it.
Haunted Pocono
and
Manor.
We're back in the present, and we see Rin now come out of like a back chamber of the kitchen, and she's holding a big pot of a stew that smells really amazing, and like she comes in right as Loop like spits this sauce out, and she kind of like freezes in place. And then walks over to the stove and puts it down, and she says, "I'm Jesse Thorne. I think it might need more salt, but can you taste that when you get a chance?" She says, "Hi, Luke," and she walks back into the kitchen. And Luke says, "So are you heading back to your big great school of magical awesomeness when this is all done?"
Actually, I promised Kravitz that we'd take a vacay. We're gonna go on that side. I'm kind of dreading it. I wanted to go somewhere beachy.
You're going on a afterlife vacation? Is that allowed?
I think he knows some people who know some people. I think we're going to be fine on that end. Plus, just pack sunscreen, which is huge.
She tastes that sauce again, and she smiles, and she puts the spoon down, and she says, "I'm really proud of you, Taco. It seems like you're really happy." And through the door out to the hallway, you see Kravitz and Barry walking by, and they pop into the door frame, and Barry says, "They're getting started soon. We should probably get out there." And Loop steals one more bite of food and says, "I was just kidding about the sauce, by the way. You're doing great." And her and Barry disappear through the down the hallway and out of sight. And Kravitz walks into the kitchen, and he says, "Don't miss it, okay? They're definitely going to want you there." And he tastes the sauce, and he smiles, and he says, "God, that's good." And he says, "I'm really looking forward to next week."
Me too.
I promise not to take you anywhere like too spooky.
You know what? I'm a big boy. I'm fine.
And he steals a kiss, and he says, "I know you are. I'll save you a seat out there." And he walks out the hallway, and you hear him bump into someone and apologize. And then into the kitchen walks Angus MacDonald, and he's taller than the last time you saw him a few months ago. He's been really dedicated to his studies at Lucas's school, and you've been at your own magical academy, and the timing just hasn't really worked out. But he beams when he sees you, and he says, "Hello, sir. Did you get my letters?"
Of course I did, Ango. I opened all of them and read them.
Why did you say that weird?
Nothing. I just read them. All of the words. Pictures? Were there pictures? No, just the words. I could tell from your face it was just words, no pictures. So yes, I read all of the letters.
He chuckles and he says, "Well, just in case you didn't, I just wanted you to know I'm doing really well at the academy. Lucas thinks I could be teaching there by the end of the year. Isn't that wild?"
You want to drop the zero and get with the hero, or what?
He says, "I mean, if you can provide an attractive enough job offer, I'll think about it. I would demand a decent salary. I'm just a little kid, but I want to be fairly compensated for my efforts and abilities."
Okay, let me show you the benefits package. And I just stand there in front of him with my hands open. Here it is. What do you think?
Well, I'll have my people talk to your people, sir.
Okay.
He walks towards you and he says, There's a letter that I didn't have time to send before I left to come here, but I just want you to know that I've thanked you 100 times for all the things that you've done for me and all the things that you taught me, but I still feel like my thanks haven't been enough, and I want you to know that you changed my life, Taco. You changed my life. And he moves in for a hug. And
I whisper in his ear, starting salary is non-negotiable.
He laughs as the two of you are embracing, and he says, I know about the silverware. I'm a pretty good wizard now, but... he moves away from you a bit, and he looks you in the face. He says, I'm still the world's greatest detective.
Okay, somewhat negotiable. It is open negotiation.
He starts to walk away, and he turns back to you one last time, and he says, it's going to be a good day, isn't it?
Yeah, little man, I think so.
Merle. You're in a small vestibule of this temple, and you're looking at yourself in the mirror. And you're wearing some formal vestments and just looking at yourself. And the figure that you see is so different from the dwarf who started this adventure years ago. You reach down to your belongings, which are laid out on the vanity in front of this mirror, and you snap in some cufflinks and you drape a stole over your shoulders, and you look down at your Extreme Teen Bible, which you've had rebound in the year that's passed, and you have a sheet of paper with your prepared remarks. And in the mirror, you notice the door into this chamber creak open. And through the crack in the door, you see Mavis kind of like sighing. And then you see Mookie slip in through the crack and sneak up toward you, trying to surprise you. What do?
I cast... No. Well, I turn and throw my arms open.
He jumps towards you to like tackle you, like just as a surprise tackle, but you turn and intercept him in the air and you grab him in an embrace. And again, time freezes. And I want to know what Merle did in the year following the day of story and song.
Okay. Well, Merle, looking back on all of the epic times that he had as one of the Trace Horny Boys, realized that there was nobody... There were people teaching magic, obviously, but there was nobody who was preparing the next generation of adventurers. Oh, yeah, the world's a lot better, but it's not perfect, and it's still going to need people to go out and right wrongs and defeat evil and make a lot of money doing it. So he started a company, and it was a great way for him to travel with Mavis because she's almost of age. And they took Mookie along sort of like as a sidekick. And he called him, he was going around and taking young people on adventures.
Taking them from their homes.
Well, I mean, with their parents' permission. It was sort of like summer camp, but he called them Extreme Team Adventures. And with this, he would go from village to village, town to town, get a group of these young adventurers, and share his vast knowledge of clerical behavior.
Okay.
And battle. And teaching them how to be a great warrior.
It's just that the logo is just a picture of Merle with like a Ghostbusters circle line through it. Just like do the exact opposite of what I did in every
teaching by example.
Each class takes about 5 minutes, and that's all I've got. Okay, bye.
That's great. So
Mookie and Mavis and I travel from town to town, taking young people on adventures.
That's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to revise my offer for you also, because that's really good, and change it to sort of offer a different sort of base of operations for this. What's it? Merle's Extreme Teen Adventures?
Yeah, extreme teen adventures.
Okay. So I'm going to say like recently, like a month ago or so, like 11 months after the hunger attacked, you're spending a quiet morning at home. You're back from one of these trips, and you're sort of planning out your next extreme teen adventure. And I think it's a wildly successful operation, right? Like, first of all, everybody in this world knows who you are and knows that you are a hero. You cannot get a better marketing campaign than that.
Right, yeah.
But also, like, everybody wants their kids to learn from you. Everybody wants their kids to like become better. And so this operation is like really successful, and I think it's like growing a little bit faster than you can like manage out of your house. So it's 11 months after the hunger attacked, and you're spending a quiet morning at home, and there is a knock on the door. And when you go to answer it, 2 big burly guards fill the door frame, and they glower down at you, and they don't say anything.
Yeah? No, I don't want a watchtower.
The 2 of them part, and you see Lord Artemis Sterling, the leader of Neverwinter, standing behind them. And he waves when he sees you a little nervously, and he says, "Hi, Merle. You mind if I come in? I need to talk to you about some important business."
Yeah, come on in, Kingy dude.
He comes in, and he immediately walks into the kitchen, and he starts boiling some water and preparing what smells like a spicy cinnamon tea. And he says, "I hope this is okay. They don't let me near the kitchen in my estate, and nobody really knows how to brew the tea just right, so I got to jump at every chance I get. How have you been since you saved the world?"
"Oh, I've been great. Been hanging with the kids. I don't hear much from the big guy or the elf guy, but I'm sure they're doing good. They've been doing their own thing, and business is booming, going out and having a bunch of adventures and, preparing the next generation for herodom."
He laughs. And he
says, I just want to say, canon. I would imagine that Taco and Magnus actually tried to call Merle all the time, but like he forgot to turn his Stone of Swear speech off of silence, and so like
that
it
is
just buzzes
so
in the
fucking
corner.
true to life, and I love it.
Mm-hmm.
He walks into your living room and hands you a cup of tea and sits down with you, and he says, "Yeah, I've actually heard about your organization. It's pretty incredible. I'm kind of here to see if you might be interested in taking on a second task. And in return, I could help grow your organization into the sort of enormous force for good that I think it could be. I got an offer for you. Will you hear me out?"
"Yeah, knock yourself out."
He, one of the guards hands him a big briefcase, and he puts it down on the table, and he pops it open, and he pulls a few things out of it. He retrieves a small sealed roll of parchment and a quill and an inkwell, and then a map that he unfurls on the table, and then a big bag that as he plunks it down, you can hear that it's full of coins. And he says, "I told you after Wonderland that I was going to try to find a way to make it up to you for what happened to you down there. And while I've been focusing on the rebuilding efforts for Neverwinter and the neighboring regions, I realized exactly what that could be." And he motions down to the map, and you see a long stretch of coastal region on the western edge of the continent. And as you inspect it closer, you realize the area depicted is Bottlenose Cove, the beach resort town that you and the boys visited months ago in our first live show episode. And Artemis says, Bottlenose Cove was destroyed when the hunger attacked, and a lot of villages were, and I've been working to get them back in shape. And, well, I think you can help me out in this particular case, because I trust you, Merle. I trust you to make the right decisions and do the right things and help this place become a thriving community for all the beach dwarves that were displaced. He says, I'm not asking you to quit doing the guild. We can build a massive guild hall there for you and help you expand to service the whole world. And If you agree to this, you'll be granted land at Bottlenose Cove and a lofty estate as well. And, well, a title. Governor Merle Highchurch, the leader of Bottlenose Cove. You'll have access to my treasury to aid in the village's repair and the guild's growth, and you'll be in charge. He says, this isn't a gift, Merle. This is an enormous responsibility, but I think you're the perfect guy for the job, if you'll accept.
Well, I got some conditions.
I figured you might.
I still get to go out and do my extreme teen adventures with Mavis and Mookie.
Yeah, of course. I don't want to get in the way of that. Again, I think what you're doing is incredible.
All right. Second, I don't want to be called governor. I want the title of Earl.
Sorry, so you want to be Earl Merle?
Yes. I want to be Earl Merle.
He sighs and he reaches down to that scroll of parchment and he pops it open and he takes the ink well and dips a quill in it and scratches a few things out and fills in a couple other things. And he says, it's unconventional, but if that's what it takes, okay.
And finally, I want the name of the community to be Merlegaritaville.
I won't do that. Absolutely not.
Chesney Beach.
No. No, that would be very disrespectful for the people who are displaced from Bottlenose Cove who just want to live in Bottlenose Cove.
Vine Lovers Haven.
I'll build you a bar myself there called Vine Lovers Haven or Merlegaritaville. I won't call it the town that, but is that enough? I will build it personally, Merle, if that is what it takes.
I think I want to call it Chesney's. I gotta go with Chesney's.
That's fine. Chesney's, I love this bar and grill. Is that acceptable to you? And he reaches a hand out over the table.
I shake his hand.
And I think the next thing we see is Bottlenose Cove, and it is in pretty rough shape. And I think down the beach we do see see Lord Artemis Sterling, with his sleeves rolled up, trying to figure out how to build a bar on the beach. And we also see your estate, and it's all ready for you. And it's right next to the guild hall that a large team of people are building, right next door. And you can see the sign hanging over it that says Merle's Extreme Teen Adventures. And in the estate, it's this huge manor built into the cliff wall that runs along Bottlenose Cove. And we see you plunk down a big stack of boxes onto the veranda of that estate as you start moving into your new house. And on the beach, you see Mavis and Mookie both running up, each carrying their own box. And Mookie trips up the stairs and he throws his box down onto the veranda and he runs into the house. And you hear him yelling from inside, oh man, there's your ping pong table. Oh man, they got a hot tub. Yeah, dude.
Mookie's the best.
And he runs out and he tugs at your sleeve. He says, they got a ping pong table. And then he sprints back inside. And Mavis finishes climbing the stairs and she carefully sets down her box and she says, I think this is going to be really nice.
You can call me Earl. Earl.
I'm not going to call you Earl Merle. And
that makes you an Earlene. That makes you Earlene Mavis.
I don't know that that's exactly how it works. And you both hear a crash from inside and you hear Mookie in the distance just yell, I'm okay. And Mavis smiles and she says, you're his hero, you know. When we heard the story of what you did when you traveled with Uncle Magnus and Uncle Taco and Aunt Loop and Aunt Lucretia and Uncle Barry and Dav, it's all he talked about for weeks.
Yeah? Well, what about you, Pumpkin?
She smiles and she says, well, you're my hero too, Dad. Not just because you saved the world, but because I know how hard you're trying. And she comes in for a hug and she says, I love you, Dad.
I love you too, baby.
And back in the present, you catch Mookie in your arms and Mavis moves into the room and you set Mookie down and Mavis wipes some dirt off of his face. Looking at you, she says, you look really fancy.
Well, I mean, I am officiating a wedding, you know.
She says, please don't tell any embarrassing anecdotes about us in your speech, okay? You promise?
Oh, I will.
You will promise or you won't? Which one?
Honey, we gotta go. It's about ready time to start.
She says, yeah, we gotta go get our seats. I just wanted to wish you luck out there. And she grabs Mookie's hand, and the two of them walk outside, and you see the last few attendees shuffle through the large double doors into the main hall of the temple. And from behind you, you hear a door open and shut. And when you turn, you see Killian. And she's wearing this beautiful floral tunic and a silk sash, and her hair is up in a tall bun with an emerald hairpin. And she's wearing the rosewood ring that Magnus gave to Carrie over a year ago. And she smiles and she says, you look really fancy. Thank you for doing this. It really means a lot to us.
Well, listen, it was an honor for you to ask. And like, you have my check, right? That'll be after, but I'll go ahead and do it now. But you do have the check, right?
I think she just ignores that. And she comes and she stands next to you in front of the vanity. And you're both looking at yourselves in the mirror. And she says, it's been a pretty strange road that got us here, huh?
Extremely strange.
She smiles and she kneels down and she puts a hand on your shoulder and says, I want you to know I wouldn't change a thing. And she stands up and walks out into the empty hall. And Merle, you make your way out too, and you go through these large double doors and walk down the aisle of this congregation hall to the lectern at the front of the crowd. And as you do, you pass by familiar smiling faces in the audience. You see Angus, who puts down a large book as you walk by, and he looks like he's about to tear up already. And he's sitting with Mavis and Mookie, and Mookie tries to stand up on the bench that they're all sitting on and like bounce up and down, but Mavis like grabs his hand and pulls him back down to the bench, and she gives you a thumbs up. And you see Lucretia sitting in the front row with the rest of the bureau employees in attendance. And she just smiles softly and makes eye contact with you, Merle. And she lifts her hand up to her heart for a few seconds. And she puts it down. And you see Loop, and she's got her arm around Barry, and she makes this big gesture and flashes an okay symbol at you, and she winks. And Barry kind of chuckles. Sitting next to them are Taco and Kravitz, and Taco, just as things are about to start, Kravitz reaches down and takes your hand in his, and it's warm. And the two of you lock eyes for a while as Kravitz smiles, and he turns his eyes back toward the lectern. And Merle, you also walk by Magnus. Magnus, you feel something small hit you on the back of the head, and you see a small pebble fall to the ground at your feet. And when you look behind you to discern the source of this rock, you see a side door into this grand hall cracked open, and you see Carrie inside. And she's looking at you with a stern face, and she motions you towards her, and she slips away behind the door.
If you will all excuse me, I have to shit.
You hear... You see Lucretia like turn to look behind and like look at you. She just kind of shakes her head and smiles and turns back forward as you creep your way toward that door, and you walk through it into another vestibule and you close it behind you. And when you look up, you see Carrie, and she's wearing this silver dress with an ornately patterned dark blue vest over it. And she's wearing a circlet of the same flowers that match the pattern on Killian's tunic. And she's wearing one half of the BFF necklace that you gave her. And she smiles as you enter, and she says, how do I look?
You look amazing.
And I think as the two of you are standing, looking at each other, the scene freezes, and we find out what Magnus has done in the year following the day of Story and Song.
So here's what Magnus has been doing. Similar to Taco and Merle, he has also opened a business / school on the remains of Raven's Roost, he has built a school where he trains in protection so that the students can go out and protect the people that need them. And he has become a dog trainer, specializing in working with Scottish deerhounds. And he trains service dogs to protect and serve those that need them. And with him is his constant companion, the largest, the smartest, the bravest of any dog he's ever trained, who he has named Johan. And Johan is his constant companion, never leaves his side, and together they make the world a better place through training animal companions.
All right.
And the name of the school, by the way, is Hammer and Tails. Hammer and Tails, brackets, a dog school.
A school for dogs.
No, a dog school with an apostrophe in there somewhere.
I don't really have the same offer for Magnus that I did for Taco and Merle. I just have a question, which is, how does Magnus die?
You know, I kind of envisioned him from the beginning as like a guy who was looking for a cause worth dying for. And I always kind of envisioned this like big blaze of glory moment. And then somewhere along the lines, like I realized that he had found something worth living for. And the relationship between Taco and Merle and all of his friends and stuff and what he was doing started to trump that. Became more important. I wanted him to live. I wanted him to survive. And so if you had asked me 3 years ago when we started, I would have said he died epically in battle.
He got eaten by a dragon that he tried to fight by himself.
Yeah, something like that. But I actually think he dies peacefully of old age, calmly, and holding in his hand his wife's wedding ring. And that's how Magnus dies.
And other folks are there too. This is just like Taco and Merle are there too. That's just like how dwarf and elf age work. You got old before they did, and they're there too, and they're with you. And Lucretia's there with you, and she's much, much older. I think she's sitting in a chair at your side. And Carrie and Killian are there, and Carrie is holding your hand in hers, and she's smiling, and she's just saying, "It's okay, bud. It's okay." And Davenport is there, and he's at the foot of your bed just smiling warmly, and he places a hand gently on your leg. And Angus is there, and he's all grown up, and he's so upset, but he's trying to force a smile for you, Magnus. And Barry and Loop are both there, and they look so happy for you. They are this force of reassurance. All of your friends that you have known for over a century, who've been with you and have loved you for so long, are all with you. They're all ready to say goodbye. You are surrounded by friends as things get hazier and hazier in a way that you're kind of familiar with. And then in a flash, the world is clear, and there's Kravitz. And he looks like Kravitz. He's not in his Reaper form, but nobody else seems to see him in this moment. And he reaches out his hand and takes yours, and he helps you to your feet. And he says, "My friend, I think this one's going to take."
Well,
and
let's hope so for your sake. I don't want you getting in trouble with the boss.
And the two of you drift away for a while, and then we see the two of you in the astral plane, and you're standing on these still waters, and below the surface you see millions of these swirling lights stretching downward into infinity. And in front of you, there's a small island. And on that island is a wooden cottage that has clearly been crafted with expert hands. There are windows of cut glass that are half open, letting in the gentle breeze that's blowing over these waters. And there's a workbench out in the yard, and the walls of this home extend upward into a loft. And on top of the house is an earthen roof covered in lush green moss. And Kravitz turns to you as you're standing on the water, and he says, You can't stay here forever. Eventually, you're going to need to join the rest of the souls here, but I'll make sure you have as much time as you need.
Thank you.
And he walks away, and the door to the cottage opens, and 2 dogs come bounding out. And one is a large, old bloodhound who's moving kind of slow as he plops down in the yard, and the other is a Scottish deerhound. And it takes you a second, but you realize that it's Johan, and he's moving much faster than he did when he got older. And he's running around the yard all excitedly, and he jumps over the sort of slower bloodhound as it lays in the grass.
Hey, buddy.
And then there's Julia, and she's carrying a ladder and a hammer, and she's got some nails that she's holding in her mouth, and she sets her tools down on the workbench, and she goes to set up the ladder on the side of the cottage, and then she stops, and she turns, and she sees you, Magnus. What do you do?
I just stare at her. Not in the dumbfounded way, not in I can't believe it way, but just, I can't not look at her.
She sets her tools down, and she smiles, and she says, You lived so much longer than I thought you were going to.
I know. I'm sorry I made you wait.
I think she starts running towards you, and you start running towards her, and you embrace in front of this house, and the 2 dogs are just kind of weaving around your feet as you stand there for what feels like hours. And
I whisper in her ear, I tried to make you proud.
She laughs, and she says, Well, I couldn't exactly see what you were doing out there, but I've heard stories, and I'm sure you did. And she pulls away from you, and you're both still pretty tearful, and she motions towards the cottage, and she says, What do you think?
Did you make this?
Yeah, no, the dogs made it.
I love the joints. Really good craftsmanship. This is amazing. Is that cedar? Is that cedar? That's good. Smells wonderful.
She says, I've envisioned this moment for a long time, Magnus, and I was so hoping you would compliment the joints. And she smiles and says, I really have thought about this moment for a long time, and I don't want to rush it. I want to savor every second of this, and we got all kinds of time. So why don't you come inside and tell me everything, okay? And she walks back towards the house and opens the door, and she whistles, and the 2 dogs go bounding back inside, and she turns and smiles at you, and she steps into the cottage.
Well, it all started when I met the most beautiful elf and the bravest cleric he ever met. Except, well, he said he was a cleric. We can never be sure.
I think you're telling this story to her as you walk into the house, and the camera just kind of zooms out as we watch you walk through the yard toward the door reciting this story, and we see you one last time as Magnus rushes in. And we're back in the present, and you see Carrie, and she's just pacing nervously in this vestibule, and she starts to speak kind of frantically. She's like, I know this is stupid. I know I'm being silly. It's just like, I'm really excited to spend my life with Killian. It's not that. It's just like, when I walk through that door, my life's gonna change, Magnus, and it's gonna be so good, but it's still really scary.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is, your life is a constant stream of changes. I mean, you start one day accepting a job offer, and you end saving the world. And you're going to walk through that door, and your life will never be the same. And I wish I could tell you that every day from now on will be amazing and the happiest day of your life, but that's not the way that life works. But every day will be made better because she's in it with you. You aren't going to be alone ever again. Even if you're ever separated, you'll still never be alone.
She stops pacing, and she catches her breath, and she looks over at you, and she's got some tears forming in her eyes, and she grabs a cloth and blots them. She's like, I'm gonna streak my fucking eyeliner. She says,
give me a hug, lizard girl.
Don't fucking call me that. And she gives you a hug. She says, I'm a proud dragonborn.
I know.
And she pulls away from you and blots her eyes one more time, and she says, okay.
And Magnus says, in thieves can't. Are you ready?
And she gestures back. I'm ready. And that door opens, and Magnus slinks back to his seat as that troupe of musicians take their place beside the lectern and start playing. And we see at opposite ends of the room, 2 doors open up, and Carrie and Killian step out of them. And everyone rises to their feet, and we see Carrie and Killian lock eyes and smile, and both start tearing up, and they begin walking slowly toward the front of the hall, and then we see the smiling faces of their friends and family in the audience, and then Carrie chuckles and starts walking faster, and Killian sees her and starts moving faster, and soon they're both just running at full speed, turning the corner as they reach the ends of the aisles, and they crash together in front of the lectern, and Killian lifts Carrie off the ground in an embrace, and she lowers her down, and they kiss, and they turn toward the audience and smile sheepishly, and everyone kind of laughs through their own joyous tears. And then Carrie and Killian turn toward you, Merle, and they nod. And we see them all now in this temple overlooking the sea, celebrating this moment of peace and love and joy as the camera pans up to show the scope of the audience in attendance at this wedding. And we see the faces of the people who fought for this day, and we feel their longing remembrance of the ones who died for it. And they're in attendance too, in a way. The day of Carrie and Killian's wedding was full of laughing and dancing and feasting and loving. It was one of the happiest days of all of your lives. And even happier days were to come, because that was the world that you made. That was the ending you earned. And then the camera pans up and up above the temple, above the world, past the sky, and into the space beyond your plane. And there, drifting between the planes that once again dance around one another in a harmonious orbit, we see Fisher slowly swimming away from your home. The lights inside of it are swirling and shining brightly as it sings itself a song as it drifts through this place, its tendrils spinning slowly around its body. And then it stops and turns backward and sees its child swimming behind, and Fisher waits for them to catch up. And it does. and Fisher wraps its tendrils around Junior, and Junior nuzzles into the form of Fisher, and they both glow in unison. And then they separate, and Fisher nods its bell and takes one of Junior's tendrils in its own, and they start drifting away together now, slowly, out of sight, looking for new worlds to explore, looking for new stories to tell.
Thus ends The Adventure Zone Balance, the story of four idiots that played D&D so hard that they made themselves cry.
Yep. Did you guys cry?
I cried.
Shut up!
I cried at how hard we played Dungeons and Dragons.
That's
Can we
fair.
play again? Can we play again?
Yeah.
Let's play again. Different. Let's
I'm gonna
do
be
different game this time.
This time I'll be a sorcerer.
Okay. No, a different game. We just played Dungeons and Dragons for it feels like weeks.
It was 3 years. World of Warcraft. Should we all get really into WoW?
Yeah.
Wow.
Or we
That's
do
fine.
Magic the Gathering. I think that'll be unpleasant to listen to because I think it'll just be a bunch of like shuffling sounds.
Yeah, and the pizza we ordered should have been here around January.
Yeah.
Tony said,
Yeah.
I'm fucking starving.
And you know what? Thank God for Coke Zero. And because it's the... What? Oh, so much has changed.
So much has changed. Coke Zero is gone.
I'll
How long
cut
have I
off
been
this
asleep?
giant beard I've grown.
It's a giant beard. So, if anybody's listening or enjoyed this, please send mops for the just unfathomable amount of urine that I've coated the playroom in.
Wait, is it weird that I haven't peed this whole time?
In
It's
3
weird you
years,
wanna pee the
Travis,
whole time.
go to the emergency room now.
I mean, I think I've just started sweating it out of it. I also haven't consumed any liquids though, so like...
Oh, you're good then.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
Okay.
wait, you're not good. Travis, go to the emergency room right now.
Yeah, this is serious.
And my whole beard is coated with Cheeto dust.
That's normal.
That's normal.
That's
That's
everyday.
just
Yeah,
a
everybody's
state of
like
being.
that.
Bye, everybody.
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture. Artist owned.
Listener supported.